आई एम जस्ट गिविंग क्विक रिकैप। हमने टेम्पलेट्स बनाए, पेज टेम्पलेट्स हो गए, डेटा टेम्पलेट्स हो गए, हमारा डेटा सोर्स आइटम्स रेडी है, हमारे पेज आइटम्स रेडी है, हमने लेआउट बनाया, पेज हमने लेआउट को स्टैंडर्ड वैल्यूज में सेट किया था टेम्पलेट पे, हमने उस लेआउट में कंपोनेंट्स भी बना दिए, रेंडरिंग्स इज रेडी। नाउ आवर पेज आइटम इज रेडी, हाउ इट विल लुक दैट इज रेडी, ऊपर हेडर है, नीचे फुटर है, लेआउट इज रेडी, बट कंपोनेंट्स अलग से रेडी है। वी आर today we will see how we can drop those components on the page and how it will look on the front facing website of the page. So Varun will be taking over today's session. So over to you.
Thanks, Rishish. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Right. So, as Rishish already mentioned, we can see the building blocks are all ready. Now we need to just put it in place and cement it out. So let's look at placeholders. But wait, we'll have to look at some properties first before we go ahead with placeholders. Right, so there are two properties which we need to know from the component standpoint, right, which is important to understand because they will define the best practices of utilizing components onto our placeholders or onto our pages, if I say. So we saw different type of components, right? View renderings, controller renderings, JSON renderings, XSL renderings, all those types. Now let's categorize them into two types. One is a page type component or a page type of rendering, which takes information from that particular page fields. Let's say title or say breadcrumb for that. And then there are other components which take some template values. That is a data source component. So for example, if you talk of a promo, or if we talk of a a 3-column component with titles, subtitles, images, and 3 CTAs, such things are generally taken from a data source. Okay, so these component properties are specific to data source type of renderings. Okay? That is where these are required to be there, and for a reason which we will see in some. So there are two properties. One is data source template and data source location. So data source template, as the name suggests, whatever data source can be selected. What is the type of the data source? We'll define that here. Okay. So the template is already in place for the data source. In this rendering, we specify, as you can see here. You will be able to see this is specified here. But if you notice, it is already visible here, right? Data source template. So the component will not accept any other type of data source. Okay, so if there are, for example, 100 items, but the type of item which can be accepted are only 5 items, the other items will not be accepted. Of course, that is also one good restriction to have, and also one good feature to have, because we technical people will understand this. But if a client is doing this is a feature for them. So if they select a different data source, let's say for example, the user or the client is selecting a banner type of an item in a promo rendering, what is going to happen? It's going to fail. It might either give an error on the page or it might not look good. So to avoid such things, data source template, so it will give a validation message to the user in case they are selecting a different type of template, a different type of item, I must say. Okay. Second is data source location. From where? So again, we have the data folder. That data folder is technically where the data sources reside, right? So we generally have a data source folder location and a data source items. So those data source items that are there, that location we will specify here in the rendering, so that again we'll see how it works technically. But if I give you a little bit of hint right now, we are generally adding components from experience editor, and that is how the client also does it. It's what you see is what you get. So when they are adding it from experience editor, they are selecting that particular type of rendering from this location.
This component is already having its own template. I mean, we have created this component template. There are fields, etc. there. Okay. So this data source is another template which relates to for data or templates things?
So you would have looked at renderings right now, controller rendering and all those things. So when you have looked at those renderings, you would have created kind of a data folder, and inside the data folder you would have created that item. That particular item which you are going to give in the data source of the rendering, this template is of that data source item. Okay. We will look at it in action. So I think that time it will be much clearer, but this concept is very important, how it connects. So now let's look at the type of binding that can happen on a page. There are two types of bindings. One is a static binding and second is dynamic binding. Of course, if you are using a CMS, what will you use? Dynamic binding. So static binding, what is it technically? You cannot modify it from CMS. It is by default available. Okay. So let's say, for example, in a traditional or a usual way, right? Just plain Sitecore, neither SXA, nothing. We are having a header, we are having a footer, and we are statically binding it onto the layout. Okay. So again, I'm not talking of the content. I'm only talking of the HTML structure, which has the layouts or the placeholders for header and footer. So that can be considered as a part of static binding. Right? Next is dynamic binding, which is basically utilizing placeholders and dynamically adding the components or renderings onto the page. So how do we do static binding? So static binding again is mainly for structuring purposes or stuff like that, but we do not use it anymore. To be very honest with you, we do not use it. But if you want to see how it is happening, so technically in the view file, you can specify html.sitecore.rendering and the rendering ID. Okay, so whenever you are creating a rendering, there is an ID, HUID, that ID you specify, and then you will be able to place that particular rendering on. This is static binding. This is done by developers.
When we say static binding, we cannot even.
Not,
You cannot add, you cannot delete, you cannot change, you can just change the data, which we have given data source ID. It is taking data from some item. You can just change some item values there and it will update. That's it. It is very rarely used nowadays, but for example, metadata, right? In header, we have metadata. It's fixed. Title, meta description, some tags. It's fixed. वो वहीं आना है, कहीं और नहीं आएगा. तो in that case, we can use this static binding.
all right. I hope I am not going too fast. Next is dynamic binding, which is generally utilized, whether you say traditional Sitecore or whether you say SXA, whether you say even headless. So let's consider three sections of the page: header, footer, and name. So these placeholders are you can consider them as keys, right, or locations where renderings can be added, and ordering also can be changed as required. Okay. So we will see how this binding happens, but when you see these names, right, they are the keys, and these keys have some properties to be linked with them in the CMS so that they can work the way they are supposed to work in Experience Editor. So what are they? That is called placeholder settings, right? So what we generally do is we first define maybe a layout or something where we add placeholders, like say head, main, footer. Next, we go in Sitecore and we create placeholder settings in that particular location if you have seen /Sitecore/layout/placeholder settings. And in this placeholder settings, we have things that we need to fill. One is the placeholder key. So this key is the key that we have here. Correct? That key is available. And then what type of component do you want to allow to be added to that particular section of the page? Hence, we also call it restrictions. Think about it. What if the client user goes and adds a primary navigation and content in the main section? Not allowed. It can only be added in header. Hence, these restrictions are.
And this placeholder setting not visible for the client, right? For content.
They are not visible, but they are coming in use. So this is what the development team does. They keep them in place whenever new components are added. All these placeholder settings are updated, whether that component needs to be added in that placeholder setting or not, so that it can then be utilized on various sections of the page. We are currently only seeing, from simplicity standpoint, it is just main, right? But let's say you have a two-column layout, right? Left column and right column, and you want to have, let's say you have a bigger left column, let's say MD8, and MD4 is your right column. It kind of like updates, and then you have to put different type of components there, then you can do all that, placements here. So based on the designs that we get, the HTMLs, and then the component or rendering creation that we do, we then decide what will go where and do the need.
If you are not assign any component, then it will be available for the right whole component.
If you're an administrator, yes. If you're a content author, in Experience Editor, they will not be able to add any component. Again, there are ways of adding components to the page, right? We already know content editor. You can go to presentation details and tag there. But the ideal way of working, like when you're looking at the client and you want to make sure that eventually you're going to give or hand over the system to the client, right? So you have to make sure that it is all done experience editable using the experience editor. And for that, these things are necessary. So these are the best practices that generally are followed in all the projects which we implement from scratch. And also sometimes when they come to us, we start implementing these if they are not in place. Good. All right, so let's have a quick demo around the same. So what I will do is I will get us. So what I've created a page called traditional placeholders. I have opened it in Experience Editor here. And I have done some pre-work because this environment is slower than the soap of body.
Yes, sir.
So I have added two column layouts. So one is a traditional one, and it's a view rendering. You would have already seen initially. How does it look like? Traditional two-column layout, very simple, 8 columns and 4 columns, and then 2 placeholders, left column and right column. So we have these 2 placeholders in this particular component. Now let's look at its mapping. Right? So what next we will do? Anybody?
Assign data source.
No, we will first create the placeholder settings. Okay. Right? So we will go and here in /layout/placeholder settings, I have created something called left call, and I have added 2 components to it. One is banner and second is another banner. Okay. Let's look at both those renderings. Okay, quickly. So if I go to banner folder, I first go to banner, and in here we will have the data source location and data source template in place. We will see how this works, okay, and why is this important. And I'll go to another banner which does not have it. Okay, same component, just a different name, controller, everything same. Okay, same controller I'm calling format. Set till here. Now, what have we done? We have added a rendering, view rendering with 2 placeholders. We have created 2 placeholder settings. Left call with 2 components, right call with nothing in it. And we have 2 components in place, one having data source location and template, and one not having it. Clear till here? All the presets are done. Now let's open the page in Experience Editor, and it takes a while, hence I've already opened it for saving time. So here, do you see that third icon with a Y? So that is an add a new component. So when we click that in experience editor, we get the facility of adding renderings or components to this page. By default, main to hoga hi, right? So what we will do is we will go here, let's say on top of the no text, I am going here. So for this particular placeholder, these are the components which are available to be added. I'm currently adding a traditional 2-column component. So when I add it, we will see two areas with checker box gray. These two are the placeholders that we have in the view rendering and the keys which are gray. So now let's something new. And what I'll do is I'll go here and I'll change this placeholder key. I'll make it right column 1. Just for fun. And it will take a while because the right tab, it is still refreshing, so it will take a while to save this as well. Save. Now I'll refresh the page. What we have done is we have renamed the placeholder key of right column. So do you notice some difference in the gray area? We only have one. The right column 1 has disappeared. Now, can we connect the dots why that placeholder setting is important? So let me rename it again. The demo bots
every weekend for the week.
now, please note I have logged in as the administrator of the system. Hence, if I go to, I'll first go to right column and I'll show you how that view will be visible. Please note for a client user, the view that you will be seeing right now will not be the case. Okay? It will not have any component, but if you go, because you're an administrator, you have all the rights in the system, right? It will show you a way of adding any rendering. It will give you the complete route of the renderings to be added. Getting me? Yeah. Because I am an administrator in the system, I have full rights, full power of it all. Okay. If I am a client user, I have limited rights. With limited rights, you don't get even the visibility of the whole content tree. Right? The rendering section, the placeholder section, all that is not visible to the content author. I will log in as a content author and show you the tree. Okay. But if I am working with a content author, our presentation will be over and one demo will also not. So because of the restrictions and the slowness of the environment, it takes a little while. So I'm logging in as an administrator so that it is fast and it is not checking for the access rights. Right? That is the only reason I'm logging as an admin. But because I'm an admin, I can see the whole route of renderings. Now, right? But if this is not added, then no rendering will be visible. Now let me go to left column where we have added two renderings, banner and another banner. So let me add banner first so that we can identify the difference. Okay, let me add another banner first so that we can identify the difference when we add banner. Okay, I'm adding a banner, another banner first. I'm selecting it, nothing happens. It's a data source component. How is the client or an end user who is using your system supposed to know what to do with that component. Nothing happened. He will add it 100 times and nothing will happen. Yes, the component will be added to the page. Technically, nothing will happen. Nothing is assigned. So when you are assigning data source template and data source location, Sitecore knows what to do next. It's a queue. Okay, now I need to open the data source specific guidelines. Okay. So now let's add banner. Here you see another banner. Yes, if you are a very proficient content author, you will know you need to add an associated content and do the needful. But I am not talking of a proficient content author. I am talking of a normal user, right, who has just started using the system. In that case, they will not understand. Let me go back again and here.
So it is not mandatory to have. It is just for the.
It's a best practice. It's a best practice. Without that also things can work, but you see how. People on the phone, I hope you didn't have a glitch from our side.
It was minor, so that's
So when you hover on this add here button, you will see the placeholder key. You're able to see it, right? Left icon call. So let me click on that again. And this time, let me add a banner which has the location and template added. As soon as the component makes it to this placeholder, pop up, selecting the associated content is available. Now remember, we initially talked of what type and the validation message. By default, the folder is selected. Banner. What does it say above? Banner item is not a valid selection. Right? Because we have given the template of those items, the folder is not selectable as a data source item. The OK button is also disabled. Now let me select a valid item. Validation message goes and the OK button is enabled. I'll click on OK. And then it will take a while for that component to reload with the data. Right? And let me save this so that we have one level of page definition done. Right? Do you want to do recap real quick? I can quickly do that for us. Right? So I'll go back to the presentation. What did we do? We have added data source, template, and location for the component. Then we saw the two-column traditional layout with two placeholders. Next, we went to the rendering and saw how that rendering is available in Sitecore. So view rendering. Next, we did the placeholder setting configurations. Next, we placed a component on the page using experience editor. So we went that add here. So okay, so we selected banner. Then we found this validation error because of the data source location and template. Next, we selected a valid item and component was available on the page. We saved it. Clear to this particular point.
Let's say in a website we have 5 different banners are there for 5 different landing pages.
Yeah.
So first of all, content author will create all those components.
कंपोनेंट एक ही है, डेटा अलग है.
Data अलग.
डेटा पहले से वो डेटा क्रिएट करके रखेगा.
करके रख सकता है या तो
बना भी सकते हैं.
दिल ड्रॉप किया यहाँ पे यूसी बैकएंड सॉल्यूशन वो ऑलरेडी फिल्ड है.
हाँ वही that is my
Create
question.
new content. So when we selected that, we have an option of creating new content at the same location. So they can create a new data item and then define it again.
On the go, you can also create data.
One option. On if all you have already created in content tree, you can select and then you think okay, I need a description also. So second or third field and directly inline editing कर सकते हो.
Alright. Do you want to see how it can be like, you can directly go to content editor from experience editor? I can show you that as well. You can click on this and click on edit related item, the associated. Save and save. Any questions till now, or are we clear? From flow perspective. You can use banner, edit related items, and what will happen is content editor will open above where you can update the item here. Or you can even right click and create a new item and then select that item instead. Everything is possible. Experience editor, content editor can be created, opened, and all the needful can be done. If you're selecting a new item, then you can say save and close. So that new item will be available. Everything, right? So for simplicity right now, I'll just keep it as is and close it. The experience editor will reload. And at this particular point in time, I mean, usual scenario would be you might have multiple two-column components. Let's say you have like, one full width component, below that you have two-column component, below that you have again a full width component, and you again have a two-column component. So I like that strategy for designing. So what I'm doing is I'm going over here and I'm adding another two-column because I want to add. Okay, I'm just selecting traditional two-column. What happened? I just added two-column, right? Then why do I have these two components together? Can anybody explain? Something is wrong with Sitecore.
Placeholder are same, right?
Perfect.
That's why.
Precisely the point. Right? Placeholders are same. So if you are adding this traditional with placeholder onto the page multiple times, your components will be repeated in all the placeholders where that placeholder is present. So this is the problem statement because it is a very usual scenario that we will have things like these in our usual things. Like even let's say we have a row, big row, and we want to add multiple rows and do something. It can also be a placeholder by itself and we can do anything inside. But then this is a restriction. It is a failure case. This is why we have concept called dynamic placeholders inside. So let me go back to the presentation and all right. So now you know the why behind dynamic placeholders. So again, the same concept, right? You have header, then you have main, then you have a two-column component. Then again you have main and you have again the two-column component. In this scenario, what will happen is if it is the normal placeholder, the site is gone for a toss. So we require dynamic placeholders. So whenever we are creating placeholders, we try to analyze and most of the times we utilize dynamic placeholders as a best practice because at present we might not know the use case. In future that use case might come into picture. Might take a chance. So when we are having dynamic placeholders added, technically what happens is you can create a placeholder setting. So of course you'll have questions, key kaise change karunga hamesha, right? So dynamic placeholders have a way that the initial section of it, which is let happen call, you define the placeholder key or the placeholder setting using that. The GUID that is added and 0, 1, all those things that are added, they happen dynamically on the page by taking context of the page, template, rendering, everything. Right? Those IDs are then added and configured there. Right? So if we look at the dynamic placeholder 2 column layout, what has changed? Right? Placeholder because dynamic placeholder, that's it. Nothing else changes in the system. Now let's look at this in. So I will go to a different page, dynamic placeholders. And I have again configured some things.
Some brief history. When this dynamic placeholder in initial Sitecore version, it was not available. It was just placeholder, static ones. So what we used to do is we programmatically created keys. We added counter that the placeholder -1. Then same component comes again. So -2. That dynamically we used to create to mimic this dynamicity. But then Sitecore itself came with, because it's a generic prop, right? So Sitecore itself came with this concept, dynamic placeholder.
Okay, so again, all the things remain same. If I go and if I try, so this is the page with dynamic placeholders. I will show you how it is. If I go to presentation details, I have, instead of traditional 2 column, I have added 2 column. I have added multiple 2 columns. And then I have banners added.
थोड़ा lag होता है. Yes, sir.
Sorry for that. So then there is, I have added a 2 column and then I have added another 2 column below. And then I have added 2 banners each. Okay, so we look at this. This being the first banner, right? Where I have selected this and below I have another data source. This time it is not duplicating itself. Why? As we look at the GUID, similarly, if I go edit of this particular thing, you'll see that there is a GUID attached to it.
And it automatically happens. We don't need to do anything. The same steps we took in normal placeholder, same thing you have to do, this will automatically happen.
So just we have to change that placeholder to dynamic placeholder, that's it.
That's it.
From content author perspective, there is no change. From development perspective, there is just that change.
That only one syntax.
What I'm doing is I already have 2 banners on the page. I've added 2 column. I have selected banner. Sitecore will ask me for a data source item. Select a data source item, click on OK. We'll have a third banner in place. And all 3 are different. Clear? Right, so how do we place, again, everything else remains same, no difference at all. Right? But as we saw, we'll have a different ID available, which will be the unique key on the page. That is how it will differentiate between the 2 placeholders and place the component where it is necessary. Right? So a quick look at the best practices. I think yesterday during renderings, you would have seen thumbnail images. If not, I can show you how that is and why is that important. Not sure. Let me cover that. We saw data source template, we saw data source location, we saw allowed controls, right? Thumbnail image, it is again kind of a feature for the end user to know how that component. Okay? Because for example, I have banner and another banner. How will the client content author understand what is banner and what is another banner, right? So in that case, let me do one thing. I will go here and let me let this finish and then I take a screenshot of one of these components.
Icons we used to, in templates, we used to set icon of that template just to visually differentiate between different items created for different templates. Similar kind of concept.
So I will take a screenshot of this. Now I'll go to the banner component. Over here. Can search for it. Something called thumbnail. And in the interest of time, I'll select something which is already available in our media library. Any questions that we have from any of the past sessions or from this session? Let me select this particular thing. And I will save this. Now, I go to the experience center. We have a thumbnail kind of showing how that component will look. Sorry, I could not put the screenshot there because it is taking a lot of time in uploading. This one. So this is how, with such images available. So if you have a 3-column component, if you have have title component, banner component, promo component, things, right? Then with all these thumbnails available, it will be easier for the client user because we as development team will understand everything. Even the nomenclature will be clear to us what that component will do, not for a non-tech user. That is the concept of thumbnail image. All right. Well, in that case, going back. Few important links for the whole presentation basically. Which will help us out.
Any questions on the phone?
Uh, how we are handling in the JSS for the dynamic placeholder concept? I know we will see later, but just for this time,
Yeah, Ravina, it's a great question, but again, we don't want to jump and go to things that we will be definitely covering in JSS sessions. So I'll say keep this as a note and we'll cover it later.
okay.
Because we are following a flow and we don't want to break that flow.
Yes, true.
Okay? So that will be covered definitely. Alpesh, what?
Best practice to use that.
Yes. See, for the things that you know that they are never going to be repeated in the page, use placeholder. But then the things which might be repeated, right? Like even if you can go like when we are developing, we can identify that okay, some of these things can be repeated on the same page. When you identify such things, always dynamic placement. And in case of confusion, default route, the default case of switch, dynamic placement.
You show the data source type and those two fields.
Yeah.
Sure.
Once Varun is done, we last time that will utilize to look into some fields. We came to know that there is some confusion in this session, so we'll cover that up. Last 10 minutes.
So, put it in this way. Sorry. This is the template of the data source item that is going to be selected. And this is the location where the data item will reside. If I show you in the content editor,
And that's why I think the global banner that folder will come. We are choosing the content.
Yes.
Got it.
anything else? Again,
No more questions? Then stop. We'll take 10 more minutes for some refresher on fields and then we'll wrap. Okay. So in the session fields, we looked into that there are many types of fields, but demo we covered only a couple of type of fields. In today, we'll directly focus on demo and we'll see how different types of fields can be used, mostly the list types and the link types. In templates demo, we created a template called homepage, if you remember, and we had this data and then there were a couple of fields coming from base template and then from the home template. Okay. What I have done today is in the homepage template itself, we have added some more fields in a section called general use fields. So this section is what we have created, and we have created some generally used fields that we generally use in our day-to-day projects. First one is single line text. I think that should be okay, but we'll still see. Rich text. Then there's an image field. This general link type of field. So it's a general link that I have selected here. Then we have multi-list type of field. I have given same name, so it when we are on item, it will give you a good view of what type of field it is. So multi-list is the name of the field, and type is also multi-list. We then have drop tree. Type is drop tree. Drop link. Type is drop link. Tree list. Type is tree list. Name value pair is one of the name value list that we have created field for this set. Then we have one checkbox. Then we have date time. Okay. So these are generally used fields that we use in our day-to-day projects. Now the template is ready. Let's come to the item. So when I'm on my homepage item, so I'm on my homepage item, which is created from homepage page template. And if I go below, you'll see this section that was created previously and the new section that we created just now, generally used fields. Single line text, as the type suggests, it is just a single line text and I can add any single line text here. I can also add HTML tags, but it will directly render on the UI until unless you use some HTML helpers to convert these tags into this. But this is not recommended to have. If you have any HTML, then it is you generally use field is rich text. So if there is any HTML in place, you can use rich text. Mostly we use editor. What you see, what you get editor, and you can add whatever you want. So as such, dynamically it will start adding text. If I want to add any HTML, so you will see this is my text. I just added in a P tag automatically. I can make something bold. Go here, so you'll see strong header. So it's just what you see, what you get editor. You have some control over here. There are different source profiles available for rich text, wherein I can either give limited options, either give some more options, and there is then full profile, which gives many other options. So that we can use from, we can set the source of that profile in the field, in the template field, then we have source. So वहाँ पे कर सकते हैं. So that's thing in rich text. Image as name suggests, it is the image type field. I can pick any kind of image from the media library, whatever is uploaded. So I can select any media from here. So I can select the image and it is now available here. Then general link. So this is general link type of field. I can add internal links, which is I can link my Sitecore items, which is generally used by insert link. So I can have my internal links within Sitecore. Then we have insert media link. If there are any media which is PDF, I want it to be downloaded on click of a button, then I can set media link. So this will open media library and I can select any media from here, whether it is a PDF, it can be a photo, I want to get it downloaded or opened, so that can be handled from here. This is external link. I want on click of a CTA, it should open some third party, not within our host, some other URL, www.gmail.com or google.com, which in which browser it should open, in the current tab, on the new tab, or I want to have something custom. What class I want to add in this specific link, there are some options available here, so that we can use in external link. Then anchor, if I'm on a page and on click of CTA, it should still remain on the same page, but scroll to down somewhere. So that anchor I can set hash, so that ID has to be available on the page. So that ID is available, we can create an anchor and it will just scroll to that particular HTML in the on the page. Insert email. So this mail to, right? We have that mail to option. So we can also insert email. We can insert some JavaScript, generally not getting used here, but on click of that button, what should happen? So that's generally not used. We don't also recommend. It's something that we have to manage from GS. Follow also is something that we generally don't use. And then finally clear. If you have set anything and you want to clear it, we can clear it. For now, I'm inserting just one internal link. Just now, if you see, if at the moment I click insert link, it opened me the full tree. We can restrict this by giving a source. I want you to open just a specific tenant or home item, so that we will see in a minute. So the link that I want to select is of our demo site, and I just want to link it to the same page. Okay, so this is how it will link. Saving multi-list. Now this list is a multi-list. As the name suggests, that I can select multiple things, but there is nothing in them on my left side. How will I select? We'll see in a minute. Drop tree. It is also like currently nothing is selected, so it will open the full UI, full content tree. I can go and select any one item in case I want to give a feature wherein content author needs to select only one item. Multi-list, I can have multiple. Drop tree, I can just have one. Okay. Similarly, drop link. Drop link is, it will not open anything from the here. It need a source. We'll see in a minute. Okay. it needs a source. The moment I provide it a source, it will list those items. Then we have tree list. Difference between multi-list and tree list. Tree list, as the name suggests, it will open you a full tree. You can select multiple items from that tree. Multi-list, I can give a source, and then from that source, it will give me an option to selection. We'll see in a minute, but I just want to give you, if you directly create field, don't give any source, it will look like this. Name value pair, as the name suggests, I can have a key, key1, my value is demo1. Key2, my value can be demo2. So this is my name value pair. I can create key value. So basically this is dynamically I'm adding some values in Sitecore, which I can read in code, code, and dynamically I can add key value pair kind of thing and get it rendered on the page. Checkbox. I have some add-ons added, hence it is looking like this, but when you have in your instance, it will be a checkbox. So this is UI that you are seeing here, toggle button. Instead, it will be a normal checkbox there. Because of an add-on that I have added extension in Chrome, it is looking like this. So this is a checkbox. Then we have date time field, wherein we can select the date. Nobody wants to select now because it's just, I just got one right now, but that's not. You will get a calendar, you can select a date and you can also select a time. So this is date time. Okay. Now these were mostly the fields. Now let's see what I was talking about multi-list. Currently, there is no source provided in any of the list type of field, right? What I'll say is I want to display some values in multi-list. Say for example, text. This is my folder that I want to set in as a source so that I will see all the children within this folder in the selection. So I'll select text. I will copy the ID of that item, text item. I'm copying the ID and I will go in templates and I'll just add it all list as a source in all the list fields. I'll just save it. So what we have done is we have set the source of multi-list to point to this folder. Just focus on multi-list right now. Okay. Now when I go to my home page, yeah, we can in the data source. I can also have something. What Varun is mentioning is this is just text1, text2. What I'll do is I'll create a folder. I'll create text. For example. Now if I go to my home page and when I go to my multi-list fields, what you'll see here, all the 3 childrens that we had selected as a source folder, right? All the 3. But the problem here is with multi-list, I'm not able to select text3 because it will directly focus on direct childrens of the source. It will ignore any indirect structure or tree structure, indirect childrens or descendants. It will ignore. So problem with multi-list is it allows you to select multiple items, but it will just give you an option to select direct childrens. Okay. Now, drop tree. As we have said initially, when there was no source, you saw full content tree. Now, as you have provided a source, we have restricted content author to only focus on the source that he or she can select. And in this case, you are able to select one and that too any descendants of that source. I can select X3 as well. Okay. Drop link. It's the same like multi-list, but it's just I'll get one. I'll select only one. Multi-list, you see 3 options. Drop link also you see 3 options. It is ignored.
But we got the point. No worries.
In multi-list, we are seeing 3 options inside folder text2 and text1, no text3. Similarly, in drop link also, sorry, in drop link also, we are getting 3 folder, not text3, because it directly focuses on children's. I can select one item from this. Okay. Then tree list. Tree list is again, I can select multiple, but from the tree. So this is kind of extension of multi-list. You can see in multi-list direct children, but in tree list, I can select multiple within the descendants as well. Okay. So these are different types of list fields that we generally use.
Just
Drop tree, I think. Drop tree is like I can select only one within the descendant. Now, what is the difference between drop tree and drop link? I can select one. I can also select one. One difference is I can select only children, wherein I can go here. But if you remember raw values, right? Let's see the raw values of how this looks like in raw values. So if I go here and see raw values, general link single line text, that nothing changed. Rich text, okay, you will see the HTML. Image, you will see the image ID of that media. General link, it will change. What type of link, what's the text you have configured, what type of link it is, whether it is internal, external, anchor, and then finally, which item you have referred. So this is the ID of the target item that you have referred. Okay, so this is how it will save in multi-list. Sorry, generally multi-list. I think we have not selected anything, but let's do that. So in multi-list, as we have selected two items, it will give you a reference or it will store the ID of that item separated by pipe. Drop tree, it will give you ID of that item separated by, sorry, drop tree you can select only one, so it will be just one. Drop link also item.
drop list has the value.
Drop list has the, yeah, drop list I think I'm missing. Whichever
The drop list we generally don't use.
we don't use, but we'll see why it is there and why we should ignore using it. Yeah. So in here you will see all the IDs that you have selected that item for. Key value pair, it converts into a kind of query string that you can utilize and separated by ampersand. So key one, value one, key two. Okay, this is a checkbox. We have, as we have not selected, it is 0, but by default it can be 0 or 1 because it's a checkbox, so 0 or 1. And birth rate, it converts into a state format. Okay. Any questions still here?
So just one, generally what we get confused in is drop link, drop tree, multi-list, tree list. So remember the word tree. When it is tree, a complete structure is available. When it is list, only children are available.
Now we'll see drop list, which I forgot. So drop list and drop tree. Okay. Sorry, drop link. It's the same thing. Drop link, you are also seeing tree. And drop list, you are also seeing tree. But what is the difference? I have selected text one here. Whereas on drop link, inside folder is selected. When we see the raw values, in drop link, we see an ID of that item, whereas in drop list, we'll see the value of that item. So that's the main difference. We should not use drop list because if we want to read any value of the field that is on that particular item, we will not be able to do that with drop list. But as we are getting ID of that item, we can find that item, get to the field and read the value. So that's the only difference between drop list and drop link. Okay.
And also sometimes if we rename the original item, this link again will be broken. So because of these things, ID will always remain the same.
All right, so these are different types of fields, generally used fields. Now I think it will be helpful for your exercise because for categories, multiple products, you will have to use this kind of multi-list or drop list type of field. Any questions?
There is one more, tree list EX.
It is extended version of existing thing. So basically Sitecore initially came with limited number of fields. Then people thought, okay, this can be extended, let me customize. When they customize, Sitecore thought, okay, this is good one, let me implement the same in out of the box. So it is just tree list extended. There is also tree list extended with search. So you, for example, we are just seeing couple of items, but then there is hundreds of items, which is should not be ideally. But if there are 50 items, मान लीजिए, so you'll have to scroll 50. So there is an option of search. You can type something and it will only get you
Filter that list out.
filter that. So there are hundreds of fields available. You can explore, but these are generally what we use. And for your exploration, you can generally definitely use it. Concept is same, is that it gives some more filtering mechanism. That's it.
When we select the parent, I mean, inside the folder parent, dynamically, programmatically, I think we can get the children who wanted to use somewhere in it. If the parent is selected, all children will be also included in that.
We can do that. And there are also other properties which we can say that, only for showing, only for selecting, something like that. So there are specific properties also available for this field. It's a little advanced level, but it is available. Like that, the references that we have, I think it is available.
Okay. Any more questions? People on the phone? Okay, if you don't have any questions, then we are done for today's session. We have almost covered basic Sitecore things. Next is your exercise. That exercise has to be completed by 20th of July. So please make sure you get time maybe today or by Monday and start implementing it. If you have any questions or you need any assistance, let us know. And then by 20th, it should be completed. That is what we should all target. Next session will be on I think 24th of July. That would be advanced Sitecore topic. Okay, that is all for this week. Happy Sitecoring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.